What's up, guys? It's your boy Fix It Daniel, and today we're going to be talking about the SYM scooter. We're going to be pausing for a little bit, and I'm going to explain to you guys why we are taking a pause. It's all good, but we'll get into it. So let's get into it. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have followed me on this build, please give me a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Hopefully you guys will like what's going on with the bike. But so basically we're taking a pause on the bike. Not in a bad way, but I'm going to explain to you why we're taking a pause. The reason why we're taking a pause is because we're having some valve ticking issues on the bike. So we have to take a pause because we have to gather information, gather parts, gather tools, stuff like that. So it's going to take a little bit, and I'm going to explain to you why. So let's go over to the bike, and I'll explain to you. All right, guys. So the reason why we're pausing is because there's a ticking noise. There's a ticking noise going on. We got the bike torn apart. So in the last video, we got it started, and you guys heard it make that tick, tick, tick noise. I did some research. Some people said that it is the crank. The crank could be off balance. It could be the main, the drive shaft bearing. I did a verification because I had to tear the bike apart to verify it. So off camera, I took this bike out. It was actually a lot faster than I thought. Got it all out, got it torn apart, got it all the way down to the crank, and I moved the crank. And what people were telling me, I saw online, which was basically, if you take the crank and you got it at top dead center and you push it up and down vertically, if the rod that the piston is connected to moves up and down any way with any play, then the crank bearing that holds that is bad. It's like basically looks like a little cage with these little thin roller log bearings that goes inside and then keeps it in place. That's actually fine. I did the check. That is perfectly fine. I did the side-to-side motion. It's supposed to have a little bit of play. I didn't do the gapping part, but that should be fine. It didn't have that much wiggle room. So I was at a wit's end. I couldn't figure out exactly what was still causing it. The crank seemed fine. I put it all back together, got it back in the bike, got everything back in, checked my lashings again, and it still did it. And I couldn't figure out for the life of me why. So some people in the forum said that your chain tensioner, which is right here, your chain tensioner can cause the valves to slap. So I was like, that's an easy fix. So I put the bike back together, got everything straight. I thought of that maybe because mine, there's a spring that goes in between the nut and the actual tensioner part. So I went to Ace Hardware and got some new springs. They actually sell springs. They can be used for just about anything. But really and honestly, you just need a spring in between to put some more tension on the tensioner. So if you can get enough tension in the spring to push down on it nice and hard, then it'll hold more tension on the actual guides. So I did that, and it did. It held it nice and good and tight and everything. But after all that and starting the bike, it still had the tick. And I'm like, okay, we did everything. We've done the crank. We checked the crank to see if that was an issue. But even after all that, it still made it, and it didn't even, the tensioner didn't even make a difference. The only difference is that it was just too hard on the tensioner. So I had to adjust it a little bit to let up the slack because I had it on there too tight. So I basically just need to cut the spring a little bit more to make it a little bit more, have some more wiggle room so it's not so tight. But that's not a big deal. So we will take care of that later. I'm thinking about buying a manual tensioner. They sell a manual tensioner with a little basically it's still the tensioner on the end, but it's like threaded with nuts. So you got two nuts, a lock nut and a turning nut. And then once you get it pushed down, you can do your adjustments. So we're probably going to get that. That'll make life a little easier so we can let some tension, or if it's starting to slap, we can give it some more. So without having to change the springs. Now, the spring's a good idea. That's good for a backup, so we'll keep that. But I do want to get a better manual tensioner one. That way we don't have to worry about replacing it. It'll never wear out because as long as you got it tight, it's going to stay tight. So, but I think the spring that I had in there before is fine. So we'll probably change it back to the original one, see if that makes a difference, and then we'll do the manual tightening one. So that's one thing we need to go get. So after doing some more research, digging into the valves, it's either the valve or the crank. It sounds like it's coming from the crank because I took everything off here and I could hear it a little bit more, but I don't know if that's the issue. So I kept staring at the digital manual, reading about the valves and everything like that. And so the intake is a 0.10, 2 millimeter, and the exhaust is a 0.15, 2 millimeter. Well, if we come over to our lashing tool that we had, or that I had, which I didn't think it made a difference, but it may make a difference. So let me see if you could see it. So let's see if this thing will focus. Okay, so this is the exhaust. You see what it says right there? It says 0.15.381 millimeters. And then we have the intake, which is a 0.10 to 0.54 millimeters. So the manual calls for a 0.10, 0.15, 0.2 millimeter feeler gauge. So I'm thinking that the reason why it's not timing right is because I don't have it lashed right with the right tools. So we are going to stop. We're going to order the feeler gauge, which is like $9. We're going to order that because there's no store sells it. It comes in like a little kit, just like my other feeler gauges, but it comes in a kit. I may even end up buying the actual tool kit to do the locking and tightening and stuff if it comes down to it. But what I use is perfectly fine. But we need to get the feeler gauge. So I have two choices. I can either buy the independent, they're just a stick with a little rubber grip on the end, feeler gauge, or I'll buy the actual kit where it has all the different feeler gauges all tied together, and then you just pick the one you want and use it. So we're going to get that, relash this again, and see if that takes care of it. If it has more play and more gappage, then that was the problem. It was basically out of timing due to the millimeters was not the right millimeters that it called for. The dimensions, the 0.5, 0.15 is what it was supposed to be, but it's supposed to be 0.0 as was it 0.02 millimeters. So we think that might be it. This thing wants to run. Everything works. The gas gauge works. Everything works. The horn, it wants to run. It wants to get going, but it's just not. It doesn't have the power, and it needs to be tuned. So we need to get it tuned. We need to get it lashed. We need to get all that stuff. I think if we do that, that might work. Now, not jumping for joy just yet. If we get the lashing tool and it still does not do it, it's still two more choices. Either this valve, the springs and the cam that I use from the old bike is just worn out, or it's just not in there right, or something. We would take that back out, take the motor back out, take that top part out, and retake everything back out. Order new springs, new washers, new C-clips, new everything. Even come with new valves, push those old ones out and put, well, those are new, so we would push those out and put some new ones in, inspect the whole entire block, put it back together with brand spanking new parts, new cams, new everything, and then try it. That's one option. Or the other option is the crank is just unbalanced. That's another possibility. I read that an unbalanced crank can cause it to vibrate. So it could be either this or it could be either that. So that is what we are running into, the dilemma of trial and error of everything. I'm not going to keep ripping this bike out if it's just the valve. But if it's the crank, we'll go and pull it out. So we're going to do one thing at a time. We're going to do the easiest thing, which is the valves. Get the feeler gauges, get them lashed right. If they do have a little bit of excessive play than what we were doing, then we think that that's it. Relash them, get them set, start the bike, and hopefully it'll run perfectly, because everything is ready to go. It's got oil, it's got coolant, it's got everything. It's ready to be turnkey. But we just need to stop this ticking noise and get the power back. So, and then if that isn't it, then we are going to definitely get a new crank, get new seals. We got to split the block in half, or the back half. So where the piston, so this is the piston part here. So right under here is where the crank is. So and there's a split right up in the middle. So we would take everything apart here, and we take apart the top part of the motor, probably take the wheel off, and we would split the block, and then we would take out the crank, replace it with a new one, make sure it's all good and balanced, and then we would put it all back together, and then everything, and then hopefully that would take care of all the issues. We still need to order a few more parts. Like, I want to get a new belt. This belt's kind of slapping a little bit. I'm not for sure if that's one of the issues. I don't know if a slap belt can cause vibration, but I don't know. But it needs to be a new one anyway, because it's starting to crack and break and stuff. So, but that is what we are running into. I'm so sorry that we have to take a break. We have to step away for a little bit, get our heads right, because I was really getting frustrated. I was almost about to give up. And you know me, I don't like giving up on a project that's so close to being done, and especially when this thing wants to run. It wants to turn, it wants to go, it wants to be driven, but the main heart of it is not letting it. And it could be just a human error, or it could be something more internal. But this top part is all new, except for the springs and the cam and the rockers up top, and then the crank down in the rear. So really and honestly, I just don't want to give up on this, because this is a really nice bike. All the parts, everything works. The body is good. The body's, I would say, good. Fair. I did all the repainting, which is up there. Everything comes on. I took it for a quick spin, even though it was not running right, and this thing is so sweet to ride. I can imagine once this thing gets up to full power and it's giving it all the beans, I think this thing will be a nice little cruiser. You know, the block is good. There's no cracks in the block. There's no nothing. It's a perfectly good block. Just the internals is something wrong with the internals. So that's pretty much what it is. There's something wrong with the internals. Everything works. All this stuff works. The computer, everything, all this stuff works. It's just missing the heart. And that's what we need to get running. I do need to eventually get some new tires, because this is okay, but I think it's going to be a little bit getting towards the end. The fronts are okay. The fronts are superb. They're perfectly fine. They got so much grip. I don't know why the rears are so destroyed. It's not like the guy was doing burnouts, but I think it's because he's been doing a lot of straight riding, and maybe he had the fronts replaced and not the rear, which would make sense. And then the rear is starting to go, but it's holding air. Everything's fine. So, but that is pretty much what we are dealing with, and what I need to go with. And we got parts we still got to put back on that I've taken off, which is not a big deal. I'm not going to put all the parts back on until this thing is running right, because it'll give me easy room to tune and do my lashings and everything. So I'm not putting anything back on until this bike is 100% done, doesn't need to do any more work to it. So that's where we're at, and that's the reason why we're stopping. Okay, guys, so I know that was a lot of information, and hopefully you guys can understand why I'm taking a stop break. So we just got to get ourselves together. We got to gather our information and parts. Hopefully the valve issue thing will be the thing that will fix this thing. I don't know, but this bike wants to run. It's just hard to find parts for it, because this is an 08, and it's actually discontinued. They don't make it anymore. They have other versions out there, but even those versions are hard to find. There's just not. This bike is almost like you buying I would say this is about equivalent to buying a Skyline or a JDM vehicle that's not meant to be over here. And if it is, there's not a whole lot of parts. So and the parts are hard to get and they're expensive. So I just happened to get lucky to find a few, but if you want to keep going down the rabbit hole, it's going to be very difficult. And even getting it, I have to get everything from overseas. Like the motor the guy was having on eBay, he sold it for $239, which is a steal. The problem is that it's like $700 for taxes to ship it. So he doesn't want to ship it, and I get that. And I didn't understand why until he told me how much it cost, and it's in euros, but it's not that much from the US dollar. It was like 700 euros, and 700 euros is $700 in American money. So I could understand why he doesn't want to send it, which is still not a bad deal, because one, it's a completely motor run, tested, everything. I could literally pull that out and put it in and get it all set and running, and it probably would run. But we're not going to give up on mine just yet. It could be something very simple. It could be just the crank. It could be just the valve lashings, and we are still going to be good. The motor and everything is perfectly fine. I cleaned everything, and I cleaned out the radiator, and the oil is good. It wants to run. I kid you not. This thing wants to run. And I can't wait to get on it and ride it, and take you guys along with me. But I do appreciate all you guys' love and support, and you guys giving me thumbs up, and being patient with this build. But hopefully in the next episode of this build, we will either figure out what's going to happen, or we'll figure out something else. But guys, I just wanted to get on here and tell you guys what was going on with it, and I'm truly sorry that we have not gotten this thing running, because if everything was supposed to be running like it was supposed to, we would have had this running a couple of days ago. This would be actually running and riding, and then when it gets nice weather, we could take it for a ride and spin and everything. And then we just have to just do our tuning, do the little maintenance stuff, replace some fuel filters, the belts, and make sure the variator and everything's all greased and good, and then we could just take it for a rip. Put all the pieces back on there in the seat, and then we would be done. But we're still close to being there. We're not giving up. It was a little frustrating these past few days, but it's okay. I'm not mad about it. I just need to take a break, step away from it, and get on some of the other stuff, like the vibe. And I have some few things for the truck that I need to get, that I want to do and show you guys. But you guys, thank you so much. I love you guys. You guys are great, and I do appreciate all the love and support. I could not do this without you guys. Hopefully we can get this thing going, and you guys can enjoy it with me, and I'll take you guys along for the ride. But guys, with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. You guys have a good and blessed day, and I'll see you on the next fix. Until then, peace.